once divided Berlin, and now it's back in light, spanning from one end of the city to the other. We look back at Germany's 25-year journey since the fall of the wall. Also ahead, empty hospital beds in Liberia, one sign of progress in the fight against Ebola. But African leaders warn they still need a lot more help before the outbreak is contained. And later, common ground. The US president meets with Republican leaders. But will there be any room for compromise in the next 2 years? CNN News Centre starts right now. Hello everyone, I'm Lynda Kinkade. The city of Berlin has officially kicked off weekend celebrations to mark the 25th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. Thousands of people watched as 8,000 lamps along the wall lit up the night sky. The balloons on top of the lanterns will be released on Sunday, the actual anniversary of the fall of the wall. CNN was in Berlin 25 years ago, and we're back there now. Jim Clancy witnessed the fall of the wall as a CNN correspondent, and he joins us now live from Berlin. Jim, take us back 25 years. Describe the scenes you saw.
Lynda, how do you describe somebody that's been penned in, walled in, literally, and then suddenly seeing the light of day, finding freedom, seeing those walls around them crumble, tearing those walls down with their own bare hands? There are few words that can really describe it. It was just outright joy, I think, that people expressed. There was an unbelievable nature to it, because most of the people atop the wall, if asked honestly, would probably have told us, you know, I never believed this was going to happen in my lifetime. The East German government was a strong pro-communist government, part of the Soviet system. And, you know, in some ways, they were even more communist than the Soviet Union itself. And so it was, you know, after arriving on Alexanderplatz earlier in the week, some 500,000 of them demanding freedom, and suddenly the wall comes down. 4 days later, they couldn't believe it. Neither could we as we looked on. Now tonight, it seems to be a different scene, and I can tell you about that as well. Lynda?
Yeah, Jim, just describe the way people will commemorate this tonight and over the weekend.
Well, you know, we had a huge celebration. We had a lot of music here a little bit earlier. Hala Garani and myself and Fred Pleitgen were looking on. What a celebration that was. But one of the special features of this 25th anniversary is the so-called border of lights that have really been created to contrast with the heavy, dark, oppressive nature of the wall. And maybe we can take a look at it now. There's a trail of lights that traces the path of the Berlin Wall, of which almost no trace remains, certainly not here next to the Brandenburg Gate. But people are very quietly strolling it. And I got to stroll it along with them a little bit tonight. And that's exactly what the artist brothers, the Bauder brothers, Mark and Christopher, wanted out of this project, for people to walk the line and realize what it was like for a city to be divided. But their division, their border, is the opposite of the Berlin Wall. It is light. They are balloons illuminated by LEDs. Those balloons are going to be filled with helium. They're filled with air right now. They'll be filled with helium on Sunday, and they will be released into the air as part of the ceremonies to celebrate the fall of the wall. And I can tell you, as you stroll along on the cobblestone streets, what you feel is a sense that these divisions are lifted now. All of this, it did go down this line, but it is no longer. I heard people speaking multiple languages. I guess I would think 1 in every 3, 1 in every 4 at least were foreign visitors who have flocked to the city of Berlin to be here on this historic anniversary. We're here right along with them, as we're going to be. We got a special report coming up at the top of the hour with Hala Garani in her news program. And so we're going to be here, you know, for the duration, and all of us are really looking forward to it. It is an event worth celebrating. Lynda?
It does look spectacular. Jim Clancy in Berlin, thank you very much. And as Jim mentioned, you can join him and Fred Pleitgen and Hala Garani for special reports live from Berlin. CNN has coverage all weekend long. US President Barack Obama held two important meetings today. The first was with his cabinet, the second with congressional leaders. It was his first face-to-face conversation since Republicans made big gains in Congress in this week's midterm elections. House and Senate GOP leaders said they plan to bring up a number of divisive issues, including immigration and health care. But President Obama said there are areas where they can work together.
Republicans had a good night, and I've congratulated both Mitch McConnell as well as Speaker Boehner for running very strong campaigns. As I also said the day after the election, what we've seen now for a number of cycles is that the American people just want to see work done here in Washington. I think they're frustrated by the gridlock. They'd like to see more cooperation, and I think all of us have the responsibility, me in particular, to try to make that happen.
Republicans take control of the US Senate in January. Kiev is accusing Russia of sending dozens of military vehicles into eastern Ukraine. A Ukrainian defense spokesman raised the allegations at a briefing earlier. He said a convoy of tanks and heavy trucks crossed a border checkpoint on Thursday and headed towards Luhansk. But a Russian official, quoted by a state news agency, denies the claim, saying a single source had made up the convoy sighting. At least 30 Palestinians were injured when Israeli police clashed with protesters in East Jerusalem on Friday. Violence also continued in the West Bank. Demonstrators are angry over restricted access to the Temple Mount, also known as the Noble Sanctuary. Elsewhere, hospital officials announced that an Israeli teenager struck in Wednesday's van attack in Jerusalem has died of his injuries. And apparently cruises aren't just for honeymooners anymore. Interpol says would-be ISIS members are booking cruises in the hope of joining the terror group in Syria and Iraq. That's according to a report from the Associated Press. Officials say they're trying to stop potential militants in Turkey before they cross the border.